Lin Dong's eyes were filled with complex emotions as he gazed at the red-robed figure seated cross-legged, still as a statue, with his eyes completely shut. He could sense that the vitality within the man had been entirely severed. He was, without a doubt, truly dead. Yet, perhaps in the near future, he would open his eyes again. But when that happened, he would become a puppet bound to this place, driven by the obsession in his heart to guard it. The great kindness of this senior, Lin Dong will never forget. Lin Dong stood straight and solemnly bowed in respect to the red-robed man before him. Even if one set aside the many gifts this person had given him, his actions alone were enough to command Lin Dong's admiration. Perhaps only these predecessors who had lived through the great calamities of the ancient world could possess such noble self-sacrifice and righteousness. Lin Dong glanced at the dragon-eye-sized pill in his hand, a contemplative look flashing in his eyes. He then sat down cross-legged, realizing that this ancient vault was now safe, making it the best place to refine the pill. "I'll refine it right here," he decided after a brief moment of thought, then gently placed the pill into his mouth without hesitation. Boom! As the pill entered his mouth, Lin Dong's face flushed red almost immediately. He felt a massive surge of primordial energy erupting within him, overwhelming in its magnitude. Sizzle, sizzle. Blue light quickly surged from Lin Dong's body, and his form instantly entered the dragon transformation state, resisting the enormous impact of the energy. His meridians and bones began to show faint scales, reinforcing his body from the inside. However, despite this, Lin Dong could still feel waves of pain coursing through him, as even his meridians creaked slightly under the strain of the surging energy. Exhaling deeply, Lin Dong calmed his mind. With a thought, the demon corpse appeared in front of him, and a beam of golden light shot into Lin Dong's body. At this moment, Lin Dong dared not separate his essence spirit from his body. Otherwise, if something went wrong, the consequences could be dire. As the separated portion of his essence spirit returned, the small essence spirit silhouette in his energy core became more solid. The tiny figure raised its hand, summoning the devouring ancestral talisman. The talisman unleashed a powerful devouring force that erupted suddenly. Boom, boom. The boundless primordial energy roared through Lin Dong's limbs like a raging flood, bringing with it a wave of heat that surged through his body like steam. The rushing energy, after circulating through his meridians, finally poured into the devouring ancestral talisman in his energy core. Whoosh, whoosh. As the enormous energy flowed in, the black hole formed by the ancestral talisman spun faster, and drops of exceptionally pure primordial energy liquid began to ooze from it. These droplets fell onto the small essence spirit silhouette seated on the dragon spirit wheel within his energy core. Sizzle, sizzle. As soon as the pure energy liquid touched the essence spirit, faint white smoke emanated from it, and the liquid quickly merged with the essence spirit. With this steady nourishment, the tiny essence spirit silhouette gradually became more solid. At the same time, the dragon spirit wheel beneath it emitted a faint golden glow, absorbing some of the liquid as well, sharpening its edges with newfound ferocity. Meanwhile, in another part of Lin Dong's body, a cluster of white light continued to shine with a gentle radiance. This was the source of the boundless primordial energy, endlessly pouring out its immense power. At the core of the light cluster was the dragon-eye-sized milky white pill. As it spun rapidly, the vast primordial energy gushed out continuously. This pill was formed from the last remnants of vitality within the heaven-scorching elder's body. Though he had little life left at the time, with his immense power, even a sliver of it was vast like an ocean for someone like Lin Dong. If the energy within this pill were fully released, even with Lin Dong's mastery of the sky-transforming dragon art, it would be more than enough to burst him multiple times. But, most crucially, perhaps due to the heaven-scorching elder's intentions, this pill did not show the slightest resistance toward Lin Dong. On the contrary, it was extremely gentle, without recklessly unleashing its energy to cause Lin Dong any trouble. It was only during the refinement process that Lin Dong realized this, and his heart swelled with gratitude for the heaven-scorching elder. If he ever managed to step into the reincarnation stage, he would surely return here and attempt to awaken the elder once more. Exhaling softly, Lin Dong focused all his attention on absorbing the immense primordial energy. As he continued this seemingly endless process of devouring and absorbing, the essence spirit silhouette in his energy core grew more solid, gaining strength at an impressive rate. During Lin Dong's intense cultivation, 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. On a rocky mountain, the young man sat quietly in meditation. Faint waves of overwhelming energy rippled from his body, scattering the nearby gravel. At that moment, a woman of cold demeanor stood quietly before him, her narrow eyes calmly observing the meditating young man. Beneath the thin veil covering her face, some unspoken emotion flickered across her delicate features. "He's changed so much," Ling Qingzhu murmured to herself. Although she had always been cool and distant toward Lin Dong, now, in this private moment, her true feelings were surfacing. No woman, not even one as cold as Ling Qingzhu, could remain indifferent toward a man who had taken her innocence. Even she wasn't immune to such emotions. Ling Qingzhu gently touched her flawless, jade-like face, her eyes filled with memories as she gazed at the young man before her. The boy from 5 years ago, immature but determined, seemed to overlap with the grown man before her now. He was no longer the young wolf who had to look up to her, struggling to find his place on the path of the strong. Now, he had become an eagle, ready to soar to the heavens. The boy from back then had finally reached this point. Even Ling Qingzhu couldn't help but smile softly at the thought, knowing just how remarkable his journey had been. Just as Ling Qingzhu was smiling to herself, her expression suddenly shifted as she noticed the young man in front of her open his eyes. Those eyes, once tightly shut, were now fixed directly on her. Their gazes met, and Ling Qingzhu was momentarily caught off guard, stunned by Lin Dong's sudden attention. As their eyes locked, a smile spread across Lin Dong's face. Then, without hesitation, he reached out and pulled away the thin veil covering Ling Qingzhu's face. The thin veil slipped down, revealing a face so stunningly beautiful that it instantly reflected in Lin Dong's eyes. The breathtaking beauty, one capable of toppling nations, caused a look of astonished admiration to bloom across Lin Dong's face. "You!" Startled by the sudden removal of her veil, Ling Qingzhu finally regained her senses. Her usually calm eyes, as serene as a still lake, were now tinged with both shyness and anger as she quickly retreated. "So beautiful." Lin Dong lifted his head, gazing at the woman whose cheeks were flushed under the sunlight. In this moment, the ethereal fairy seemed to have descended to the mortal world, making her even more enchanting and radiant. The tall woman, her face now flushed, had a rare expression of both shyness and fury in her eyes, which had once been as tranquil as amber. This sight was deeply captivating. "You!" Ling Qingzhu glared at Lin Dong with a mixture of embarrassment and anger, clearly unable to believe how bold he had been. Being stared at in such a way, Lin Dong also came back to his senses, feeling a bit awkward. His quick hands had acted before his mind could catch up, and it was only after pulling down her veil that he realized what he had done. However, he knew that explanations would do little to help in such a situation, so Lin Dong could only chuckle awkwardly. The shame and anger on Ling Qingzhu's face did not last long. Her composure was indeed remarkable, and even now, she quickly calmed herself down. She shot Lin Dong a sharp glare, then retrieved a new veil to cover her strikingly beautiful face once more. "Try that again, and you'll lose your hand," she said coldly after replacing the veil, casting another glance at Lin Dong. Lin Dong grinned. He understood that if anyone else had dared to pull down Ling Qingzhu's veil, she probably would have drawn her sword and struck them down immediately. Her current response allowed Lin Dong to realize that, in her heart, he clearly held a somewhat different position than others. Of course, this didn't mean that Ling Qingzhu had feelings for him. Lin Dong wasn't foolish. He knew his charm wasn't that overwhelming. While his talent was certainly impressive, it probably wasn't anything extraordinary in the eyes of someone like Ling Qingzhu, who had been surrounded by countless geniuses. This difference in treatment was likely still tied to the events of the past, along with some surprise at the changes Lin Dong had undergone over the years. As Lin Dong smiled, Ling Qingzhu bit her lip lightly, about to speak, when she suddenly sensed a violent energy fluctuation sweeping out from Lin Dong's body. The Nirvana tribulation? Recognizing the familiar energy, Ling Qingzhu was briefly stunned before casting a curious glance at Lin Dong. It seemed his 5 days of closed-door cultivation had yielded significant results. It's finally here. Lin Dong's face lit up with a bright smile as the energy within him began to surge. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes once more, and blue light flickered continuously across his body. Faint rumbling noises echoed from within him. This round of meditation lasted for about half an hour before Lin Dong, under Ling Qingzhu's watchful gaze, opened his eyes again, beads of sweat appearing on his forehead. All done, Lin Dong said with a smile, glancing at Ling Qingzhu. Oh. Ling Qingzhu nodded slightly, her gaze moving away from Lin Dong. Though she didn't show it outwardly, she was rather impressed. The 8th Nirvana tribulation was certainly no small challenge. Even when she had crossed it, it had taken a considerable amount of time and effort. Lin Dong, on the other hand, seemed to have handled it with ease. I've finally reached the 8th Nirvana stage. Lin Dong stood up, clenching his fists as he felt the immense surge of power within him. His eyes gleamed with unconcealed joy. The life mystique bone pill left by the heaven-scorching elder had indeed been greatly beneficial to him. Even though he had completed one breakthrough, he could still sense that the pill remained in his body, though its vast power was now beyond what he could currently absorb. It seems the majority of the benefits from this trip to the ancient vault of heaven burning went to you, Ling Qingzhu said, casting a glance at Lin Dong. Hearing this, Lin Dong couldn't help but laugh. Indeed, before entering, everyone had spoken about the many treasures within the vault, but upon entering, they found out that not only were the treasures scarce, but the vault was filled with dangers. After barely escaping the heaven-scorching formation, they encountered the black mist creatures that had been released. Some unlucky individuals had even lost their lives. In the end, after paying such a heavy price, everyone left empty-handed, forced to flee in embarrassment. It seemed the only one who had gained anything substantial was Lin Dong, while the others were left covered in dust and defeated. How long have I been cultivating? Lin Dong asked, turning to Ling Qingzhu. 5 days. 5 days, huh? Lin Dong nodded slightly, then looked at Ling Qingzhu with a smile. Why didn't you leave earlier? It was clear that Ling Qingzhu had remained nearby for the past 5 days. She could have left much sooner to continue leading the disciples of the Nine Heavens Taiching Palace, instead of staying here and wasting time. There are still many ancient remnants here that I wanted to explore, Ling Qingzhu said coolly, turning her gaze away. I see. Lin Dong chuckled, not pressing further. After a brief pause, he added, thanks. Though neither of them had said it explicitly, Lin Dong understood that Ling Qingzhu had stayed partly to watch over him. While there was little chance of disturbances in the area, her presence still warmed Lin Dong's heart a little. Ling Qingzhu made no comment in response, only saying, if you've finished cultivating, then let's go. Lin Dong nodded, standing up. His gaze fell once again on the heaven-scorching elder, who sat cross-legged like a statue. He bowed deeply in respect. Heaven-scorching elder, if I one day reach the level you spoke of, I will return to wake you from your slumber. With that, Lin Dong did not hesitate further. He turned and flew toward the spatial vortex that still lingered in the distant sky. Ling Qingzhu glanced once more at the lifeless heaven-scorching elder. A thoughtful look flickered in her eyes before her figure blurred, following closely behind Lin Dong. Together, the two of them disappeared into the spatial vortex. As they left, the Crimson Mountains once again fell into silence. A sense of desolation and ancientness slowly spread, enveloping both heaven and earth. In the Crimson Basin, space rippled before forming into a spatial vortex. Two figures flew out one after another. Suspended in mid-air, Lin Dong's gaze swept across the basin. Where there had once been a sea of people, it was now entirely empty, with only a few distant figures remaining. The previous bustling activity had long since faded away. Looks like everyone's gone, Lin Dong remarked with a smile as he took in the scene. Yes, there's still half a month's journey to the place where the alien demon region opens. The disciples from the various sects will likely begin training again. Ling Qingzhu nodded. Aren't you going back to oversee things? Lin Dong asked. Wu Kun has some leadership abilities and can handle the situation for now. Su Rou is also quite capable. As long as they don't run into too much trouble, it should be fine, Ling Qingzhu replied calmly. But your Dao sect has a deep grudge with Yuan Gate. Aren't you worried Yuan Song and the others will take action against your sect while you're away? I believe Qing Tan and Chen Gui should be with senior sister Xiao. With Chen Gui around, Yuan Song will be wary. They probably won't make any moves until the very end. After all, the depths of the alien demon region aren't exactly peaceful. If they're unlucky enough to encounter some powerful demonic creatures, they'll have their hands full, Lin Dong replied. But still, it's best to hurry back just to be safe. Lin Dong smiled and waved at Ling Qingzhu. Shall we go together? Ling Qingzhu, however, shook her head slightly and looked toward a different direction in the depths of the alien demon region. You go ahead. I still have something I need to do. That direction. Isn't that where the most dangerous demonic creatures are? What are you going to do there? Lin Dong asked, frowning as he followed her gaze. According to some ancient texts I've read, there is a Taiching immortal pool deep within the alien demon region. It's something left behind by a powerful figure from ancient times. Ling Qingzhu hesitated for a moment before explaining softly. I practice the Nine Heavens immortal art from the Nine Heavens Taiching Palace. This martial art is exceedingly sharp, and in the past, I encountered a mishap during cultivation that injured my meridians and internal organs. I need the Taiching immortal pool to heal and counteract the side effects of the Nine Heavens immortal art. Lin Dong was momentarily stunned, clearly not having realized that Ling Qingzhu was injured. Why not bring the disciples of the Nine Heavens Taiching Palace with you? That place is not easy to reach, Lin Dong asked, frowning. Precisely because it's difficult to reach, bringing them along would only result in unnecessary casualties, Ling Qingzhu responded coolly. Without saying more, she stepped forward, and a green lotus appeared beneath her feet. We'll part ways here. We'll meet again at the teleportation array. Take care. As her words fell, Ling Qingzhu did not hesitate. Her figure turned into a streak of blue light as she sped across the sky. Moments later, however, she paused mid-air, looking back in surprise. Behind her, the slender figure of the young man was following closely, a bright smile on his face. Letting a girl go to such a dangerous place alone feels a bit ungentlemanly, don't you think? Besides, this gives me a chance to repay the favor, Lin Dong said with a carefree shrug, his smile carefree as he looked at Ling Qingzhu's astonished expression. The depths of the alien demon region were cloaked in darkness, enveloping both heaven and earth. Occasionally, faint beams of light would break through, only to be swallowed by the darkness moments later. In the distance, violent roars echoed sporadically, reverberating between the heavens and the earth. Whoosh! Two streaks of light flew rapidly across the low skies, their gazes alert as they scanned their surroundings. Majestic primordial energy surrounded them, forming a protective barrier. These two figures were none other than Lin Dong and Ling Qingzhu, who had set out together 3 days ago from the ancient vault of heaven burning. Their destination was, of course, the Taiching immortal pool in the depths of the alien demon region. Ling Qingzhu had been visibly surprised when Lin Dong insisted on following her. At first, she had intended to refuse. Her proud and aloof nature made her dislike being indebted to anyone, especially when that person was Lin Dong. Her pride made it difficult for her to accept such a situation. However, when she saw the bright smile on the young man's face, for reasons she couldn't quite explain, the refusal that had been on the tip of her tongue was swallowed back down. She was normally cool and detached, and her interactions with others were usually calm and distant. However, it was clear that when it came to Lin Dong, things were slightly different. The difference might have been subtle, but it was undeniable. And the root of that difference, no doubt, lay in their complicated and unclear relationship. We've entered the deeper regions of the alien demon region. The demonic creatures here are extremely formidable. And while the creatures themselves are troublesome, we also need to be wary of others, Ling Qingzhu remarked as they flew forward, her gaze sweeping across the distant landscape. Others? Lin Dong blinked in surprise. Are there other sect disciples here as well? Not sect disciples. Ling Qingzhu shook her head. In the depths of the alien demon region, there are also treasure hunters. But those who can venture this far aren't ordinary individuals. Even in the Eastern Mystery region, they would be considered powerhouses. These people are extremely powerful. It wouldn't be surprising if some of them have reached the life-profound stage. In their eyes, treasures are everything. If there's enough benefit, they won't hesitate to target even disciples from the super sections. The life-profound stage? Lin Dong's eyes narrowed slightly. It seemed the depths of the alien demon region were indeed far more dangerous than what they had encountered outside. Those at the life-profound stage held considerable status even within the super sects. While the stronger one's cultivation, the more they'll be repelled by the demonic energy here. The life-profound stage won't face too much resistance, Ling Qingzhu explained. Normally, we don't interfere with them, and they won't disrupt the sect tournament. But here, we're outside the bounds of the tournament. So, we need to be cautious. Lin Dong nodded slowly. Those who could survive in this area were certainly not to be trifled with. If they were forced into a confrontation, things could get quite troublesome. We'll reach the location of the Taiching Immortal Pool in about half a day. The place is quite hidden, so I doubt it's been discovered, Ling Qingzhu continued. The Taiching Immortal Pool appears only once every month, and by my calculations, today should be the right time. We need to move quickly, or someone else might beat us to it, even though the place is well concealed. Just as Lin Dong nodded and was about to respond, his expression suddenly tightened. His gaze shifted sharply to the distant ground ahead, where a violent fluctuation of energy was spreading. What's that? Lin Dong narrowed his eyes and saw the source of the chaotic energy, a massive demonic creature. Suspended in midair before it, a figure unleashed a barrage of incredibly sharp attacks like a torrential downpour, completely suppressing the creature and rendering it immobile. What impressive power! Lin Dong muttered, surprise flashing in his eyes. The demonic creature had the strength of someone at the 9th Nirvana stage, but the figure was still able to overpower it entirely. It was clear that this person's strength was at least at the peak of the 9th Nirvana stage. That's another treasure hunter in the depths of the alien demon region. Let's go. Don't engage with them. It's considered a taboo here, Ling Qingzhu said, glancing briefly at the distant battle before continuing forward. Lin Dong nodded, and the two of them maintained their speed, skirting around the battlefield and continuing on their path. Boom! As they circled around, the massive demonic creature collapsed to the ground with a thud, slain by a red-haired, middle-aged man. His wary gaze fell upon Lin Dong and Ling Qingzhu, filled with deep suspicion. After retrieving something from beneath the demonic creature and stuffing it into his robe, the man quickly retreated. He's extremely cautious, Lin Dong remarked with a faint smile, though his heart grew heavy. The man had an aura steeped in blood and violence, a clear sign of someone accustomed to living on the edge. Such individuals were the most troublesome to deal with, and if all the treasure hunters in the depths of the alien demon region were like him, any conflict would surely be a headache. The two exchanged glances, both sensing the gravity of the situation in each other's eyes. Without a word, they increased their speed and flew swiftly toward their destination. Though only half a day's journey remained, the path was teeming with demonic creatures, so by the time Lin Dong and Ling Qingzhu arrived, most of the day had passed. This is it, Ling Qingzhu said, her slender jade finger pointing toward the faint outline of a mountain range shrouded in darkness. Her normally calm voice carried a hint of relief. Lin Dong looked ahead. The mountain range loomed in the shadows like a massive ancient beast, its pitch-black form barely visible. From deep within, violent roars echoed intermittently, reverberating through the air. Let's go, Lin Dong said with a smile. Keep your aura hidden. There are many demonic creatures here, and if we're surrounded, our only option will be to flee, Ling Qingzhu reminded him. Understood. With a nod from Lin Dong, Ling Qingzhu let out a soft sigh of relief. The green lotus beneath her feet dissipated, and the light of her primordial energy dimmed. Quietly, the two slipped into the vast mountain range. Whoosh! To avoid alerting the demonic creatures, they significantly slowed their pace. Deafening roars filled the air, reverberating throughout the mountains, each one filled with violent energy. Lin Dong followed half a step behind Ling Qingzhu, his spiritual power fully activated, scanning the surrounding darkness for any subtle movements. Be careful. Suddenly, Lin Dong's spiritual sense picked up a disturbance. His eyes narrowed, and he swiftly grabbed Ling Qingzhu's smooth wrist, his gaze fixed on a distant spot ahead. There, a pitch-black panther with wings lay camouflaged, its body so still it resembled a boulder. These demonic creatures could use the demonic energy of the alien demon region to perfectly conceal themselves. Even Ling Qingzhu had not sensed its presence. Ling Qingzhu nodded softly. Her bright eyes met Lin Dong's in the dim light for a brief moment. Noticing her glance, Lin Dong smiled and released her wrist, muttering almost to himself, "Feels nice." Though he spoke softly, Ling Qingzhu still caught his words. Immediately, a flash of shyness and anger flickered across her eyes. She took a deep breath, her chest rising slightly, but chose to ignore him. Her figure darted forward, carefully avoiding the slumbering panther as she pressed deeper into the mountain range. Watching her graceful silhouette disappear into the darkness, Lin Dong couldn't help but chuckle softly. Normally, he could restrain himself, but for some reason, every time he saw Ling Qingzhu's cool, aloof expression, he had an urge to say something to break her composure. It was an odd sense of mischief that he found hard to resist. Shaking his head with a wry smile, Lin Dong quickly followed after her. The two of them weaved carefully through the mountains, taking a rather peculiar route. After about half an hour, the oppressive darkness began to lift, revealing a valley bathed in a faint light. In the heart of the valley, Lin Dong could sense a tremendous surge of energy. Like phantoms, the two figures flitted up the valley walls. From their vantage point, they peered inside. At the valley's center lay a pool of water shimmering with a seven-colored glow, its radiant light illuminating the entire valley in a dazzling display. "That's the Taiching Immortal Pool," Ling Qingzhu whispered, her face finally relaxing into a smile, her expression one of quiet relief. Lin Dong's gaze followed hers, landing on the pool of rainbow-colored water. His eyes flashed with surprise. He hadn't expected to find such pure energy within the demonic, energy-laden depths of the alien demon region. It's said that the Taiching Immortal Pool was formed at the site where an ancient powerhouse passed away. His bones penetrated deep into the earth, blocking the demonic energy's influence and creating this pool. Ling Qingzhu explained softly beside him. "There's a guardian demonic creature, and it's very strong," Lin Dong noted, turning his attention to the front of the pool. There, coiled on the dark ground, was a massive black snake with 3 heads. Its jagged fangs gleamed coldly, and its saliva dripped onto the rocks, corroding them instantly. Lin Dong could feel a violent energy radiating from the snake. By his estimate, its strength was on par with Lei Qian, who was just shy of stepping into the life-profound stage. Such creatures are quite troublesome. Fortunately, they lack intelligence and act on instinct. "We just need to lure it away," Lin Dong said thoughtfully. "Agreed." Ling Qingzhu nodded. She knew how dangerous these relentless, mindless creatures could be. Once provoked, they wouldn't stop until either they or their target was destroyed. Lin Dong waved his sleeve, summoning the demon corpse. Just as he prepared to command it to distract the giant snake, his brow furrowed, and he glanced back into the darkness. "What is it?" Ling Qingzhu asked, sensing the shift in Lin Dong's expression. "Nothing." Lin Dong hesitated, then shook his head. With a thought, he sent the demon corpse flying into the valley. As it soared through the air, the demon corpse launched a fierce punch, the sharp wind of the blow smashing into the massive snake. Boom! A low sound echoed through the valley, and the slumbering snake's crimson eyes snapped open. All 3 of its heads let out furious screeches, and black light filled with corrosive energy shot toward the demon corpse. The demon corpse moved nimbly through the air, evading the black light before quickly retreating from the valley. Roar! Infuriated, the giant snake let out a deafening roar. With no intelligence to restrain it, the snake acted on pure instinct, thrashing its tail as it transformed into a streak of black light, chasing after the retreating demon corpse. The rumbling sounds of their battle quickly faded into the distance, leaving the valley eerily silent. "All done," Lin Dong said with a grin, clapping his hands together. He nodded at Ling Qingzhu, and the two swiftly descended into the valley, landing beside the Taiqing immortal pool. Ling Qingzhu knelt by the pool, dipping her delicate hand into the water. As she felt the unique energy flowing through it, a trace of joy flickered across her face. "Could you guard the entrance for a while?" Ling Qingzhu asked, her normally calm eyes now carrying a hint of shyness that softened her cold demeanor. "Oh, sure," Lin Dong replied, momentarily taken aback. He chuckled softly as he realized her request, then turned and left to stand guard at the valley's entrance. Ling Qingzhu watched Lin Dong's departing figure, letting out a quiet sigh of relief. Her slender hand reached up to remove her veil, and just as she was about to undress and enter the pool, a hand suddenly reached out from behind, stopping her. "You!" Startled by the unexpected interruption, Ling Qingzhu quickly turned around, only to find that it was Lin Dong who had returned. A flush of anger immediately rose on her usually calm and beautiful face. "We're being watched." Before Ling Qingzhu could express her anger, Lin Dong's gaze shifted toward the darkness outside the valley, and he spoke in a low voice. "What?" Ling Qingzhu's delicate brows furrowed as a cold glint flickered in her clear eyes. "You two have been sneaking around for quite a while. Why don't you show yourselves?" Lin Dong called out, his voice calm but laced with sharpness, as he stared into the shadows. Earlier, he had sensed a faint uneasiness, though it was subtle enough that he almost dismissed it as a trick of his mind. However, just when Ling Qingzhu was about to undress, he noticed a slight fluctuation in the distant darkness, confirming that they were not alone. "Since you refuse to show yourselves, I'll have to force you out." With cold determination in his eyes, Lin Dong curved his palm, and a sharp green light gathered, forming a blade-like scale. With a swift motion, the scale shot out into the darkness. Clang, clang. The sound of metal clashing rang out as sparks flew from the shadows. The dense forest stirred, and in the next instant, two black-clad figures shot out, their presence now revealed under Lin Dong and Ling Qingzhu's piercing gazes. "Heh, this kid's got sharp senses." One of the figures sneered as they landed above the valley entrance, looking down at the two below with mocking grins. Lin Dong's eyes darkened as he observed the newcomers. Both were dressed in black robes and bore a strong resemblance to one another, likely brothers. Though they were not particularly ugly, their narrow eyes constantly roved over Ling Qingzhu's figure with a lecherous gaze, and the sleazy smiles on their faces made them look even more repulsive. "What a beauty!" one of the black-robed men said, his greedy eyes fixated on Ling Qingzhu's cold yet stunning face. "My brother and I have seen plenty of women, but this one, she's in a league of her own. We were just following the energy fluctuations, but who knew we'd stumble upon such a treasure?" The other added with a sinister laugh. Lin Dong's gaze grew colder as he stared at the two disgusting figures. From the aura radiating off their bodies, it was clear that both were powerful cultivators, likely at the same level as Lei Qian, half a step into the life-profound stage. Yet, Lin Dong felt no fear, only icy resolve. His voice dripped with menace as he spoke. "If you don't want to die, get lost." The two black-clad men squinted their eyes at Lin Dong's words, their expressions turning cold. Their gazes bore down on him with malice as one of them sneered. "A mere brat at the 8th Nirvana stage dares to speak to us like that? You really don't know your place. Beauty, this kid doesn't have the strength to protect you. You'd be better off coming with us. We'll even let you enjoy the Taiqing immortal pool," the other brother leered, his voice full of vulgar intent. As their crude words echoed in the air, Ling Qingzhu's already cold expression turned even icier. However, this only seemed to excite the two men further, their eyes gleaming with lust. "You go ahead and heal. The time the Taiqing immortal pool remains open is limited. As for these two, I'll take care of them," Lin Dong said, turning to Ling Qingzhu with a smile that carried a chilling undercurrent of killing intent. The intensity of his murderous intent surprised even Lin Dong himself. He wasn't sure why he felt such a strong desire to kill these two, but his instincts told him that he didn't want to let them escape alive. These two are the infamous young brothers of the alien demon region. The older one is Yang Zhan, and the younger is Yang Wei. Both are at the half-step life profound stage and are known for their ruthless methods and perverted nature. They've been wanted by some super sects, but hiding in the alien demon region has kept them safe. Should we handle them together? Ling Qingzhu hesitated, knowing that dealing with two opponents of this caliber could prove difficult for Lin Dong alone. We don't have time to wait another month, Lin Dong replied with a smile. If they missed the opportunity today, the Taiching Immortal Pool wouldn't open again for another month, and with the ongoing sect competition, they couldn't afford to stay here that long. Be careful then. I'll come out as soon as possible, Ling Qingzhu said after a brief pause, biting her lip lightly. She nodded to Lin Dong before gracefully diving into the Taiching Immortal Pool, her elegant figure moving like a white koi fish as she swam toward the depths of the pool. Her white robe floated lightly behind her as she submerged herself in the shimmering water. As Ling Qingzhu entered the Taiching Immortal Pool, Lin Dong's smile faded, his expression turning cold and deadly. His dark eyes locked onto the two figures perched on the cliffside. Heh, don't worry, beauty. My brother and I will join you soon enough. One of the young brothers called out, his eyes burning with desire as he stared at the rippling water of the Taiching Immortal Pool. There's no need for that. The two of you can keep each other company in the afterlife, Lin Dong said, his figure slowly rising into the air. A sinister grin spread across his face as he clenched his hand, summoning a small crimson cauldron that appeared in his palm. The young brothers had thoroughly ignited the flames of Lin Dong's killing intent, and there was no turning back. They would not leave this valley alive.